Let's talk about the importance of the land of Canaan, the forgotten part of the covenants. The land of Canaan is an interwoven issue with the Torah. In many ways, the commands are inseparable from the issue of the land of Canaan, and it's an important focal point of the covenants. Despite this, many teachings have effectively ignored its relevance. And this could be because reducing it to symbolism effectively causes us to not notice that it's important, or the issue of a Pauline Greek paradigm being applied to the text, and so we don't really pay attention to those issues even though they do come up in the Torah, even if we are paying attention to the Torah. So no matter how we may have been approaching the text in the past, we need to realize that the covenant directly relates to the land of Canaan, and it's an important part of it. Now, while there are many examples of this, let's look at a few so we know what we are looking for. First is the incident of the burning bush. After Moses approaches the bush and Elohim introduces himself as the Elohim of Abraham, what does Elohim say? Exodus 3:7-8. And Yahuwah said, "Seeing I saw humbling of my people, and I descended to cause to deliver him, and to cause to ascend him from that land, to land good and wide, flowing of milk and honey, to place of the Canaanite." And of course it goes on to list the other tribes as well. So this issue was important enough to be one of the first things said whenever Moses and Elohim are interacting at the burning bush. After Elohim introduces himself, he explains that he is going to remember that part of the covenant, as we will see. And later on in Exodus 3:14-15, Moses had asked, "What am I supposed to say to Israel?" And Elohim explained his name. And then in the following verses, in verses 16 and 17, he reiterates this. He says that I am going to bring you into the land of Canaan. Now, we also see this, of course, in Genesis in reference to the Abrahamic covenant. Genesis 17:8, "And I shall give to you and to your seed after you land of your sojournings, all of land of Canaan, for holding of obscurity, and I shall be to them to Elohim." Some of the major points of the Abrahamic covenant were that Abraham was going to be multiplied greatly, and that he was going to be given the land of Canaan. Of course, there's also that Elohim is going to be his Elohim and the Elohim of his seed. And the circumcision command is also part of it. But once again, a major part of this that we will see reiterated and that we saw reiterated at the burning bush was the giving of the land of Canaan. The inheritance of it as a perpetual holding is once again a significant element and a significant focal point. And it wasn't just important for them back then. Because the thing is, we could look at the incident of the Exodus and we could think, well, they're, in servitude, and so obviously being taken out of servitude and brought into their own land would be very significant to them. But it doesn't just apply to the past. Because we see in Leviticus 26, it talks about the curses of not following his commandments, his Torah. And one of the curses is they're going to be thrown out of the land of Canaan, and they're going to be in a state of captivity outside of the land, which is effectively where we are now. Most of Israel does not live in Canaan. They do not occupy all of Canaan, and they are not living in peace. Most of us live outside of Canaan, effectively in captivity. And even more so, most of us are not following his Torah. They are not following the commandments of his written law. And so they are still in the state of the curse, effectively. But we see in Leviticus 26, verses 41 through 42, "Or then their heart, the uncircumcised, shall be submitted, and then they shall accept their iniquity. And I shall remember my covenant of Jacob, and indeed my covenant of Isaac, and indeed my covenant of Abraham I shall remember, and I shall remember the land." So even though Israel has broken the covenant, they broke the covenant, they were thrown out of the land of Canaan, they were living in captivity. Even though they had broken the covenant, at some point, Israel is going to repent. They're going to realize that they have been doing wrong, that we have been doing wrong, that we have not been following after him in the way that he commanded. And in submitting their hearts, in recognizing their iniquity, Elohim is going to remember the covenant. Even though they broke it, he is going to remember the covenant. And he is also, in doing that, going to remember the land. This is one of the first things at the forefront of his mind in this case. Remembering the covenant, remembering the land. And we even see this in the prophecy of Deuteronomy 30, the prophecy of the restoration of Israel, an event that is yet to occur. Whenever Israel is restored, and of course, the nature of the restoration of Israel, of course, hinges upon the land of Canaan. We see in Deuteronomy 30, verse 5, "And Yahuwah, your Elohim, shall cause you to come to the land which your fathers occupied, and you shall occupy it." So they are going to come into the land of Canaan. This is an important part of this prophecy, an important part of the restoration of Israel, of their returning to Elohim. And as a reminder, the reason this is occurring, according to verse 10, "That you shall listen in voice of Yahuwah, your Elohim, to guard his commandments and his enactments, the being written in book of this Torah, that you shall return to Yahuwah, your Elohim, in all your heart and in all your vitality." The land of Canaan and the inheritance of it is an important part of the covenants. And indeed, it is interwoven with the issue of the Torah itself. Many of the commands directly relate to the land of Canaan. So please be aware of the importance of the land of Canaan. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out some of my other videos on other Torah issues, and be sure that you stay in touch so we can continue this discussion. Thanks for watching. Remember the commands. Shalom.